Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen for Tailored Expressions, and in today's video, I'm going to be creating this card using the Bear Hugs card making kit. And then at the end of the video, I have a ton of inspiration to share with you. First, let's take a look at the Bear Hugs card making kit. Some of these products will be available in the kit and some will be available a la carte, starting with these envelope seals, which are these super cute polar bears already colored in and great for decorating your envelopes. Then we have the Bear Hugs stamp. So this is a red rubber stamp. It includes these three different adorable polar bears. Also has the coordinating die. And then we have a coloring stencil. So you can either color in with your favorite color medium, or you can use the stencils to color them in, which is quick and easy. We have the favorite sweater embossing folder. And then there is the Very Much Love stamp set. These are some really fun sentiments that you can add to your card project, and there's also a coordinating die you can pick up individually. And then we have some foil it panels. So first there are some decorative ones that you can use, and I will be using the snowflake one today. And then there is the foil it insiders. So this is available a la carte, the insiders are, and there's a lot of really fun sentiments in here for all different types of occasions or just to say hello. Now we'll take a look at some of the other products that I'm going to be using to be creating the card I showed at the beginning, starting with the Snowdrift die, the A2 postage stamp stacklets, A2 layers stacklets, and then I have the stamp set Through the Woods with its coordinating die. Cardstock that I'll be using is dried fig and sugar cube. I'm also going to be using some silver fun foil for my project. I have some foam strips and scotch tape, my ink stand to hold my ink pads while I'm ink blending. I also have some teal tape and the scotch removable tape. For blending tools, I'm going to use the regular blending brushes, the detail blending brushes, and I also bring in the mini blending brushes not shown here. I'll also be using my Misty to do my stamping. For ink colors, I'll be using VersaFine Clair. Then I have oat milk, mushroom, cilantro, jalapeno, and I'm also going to use pink champagne, cherry pop, mulled wine, jelly donut, blueberry, and cookie monster. Now let's make a card. I'm going to start by stamping all three of the polar bears onto sugar cube cardstock, and I'm using my Misty stamping tool to do that. I'm going to start by stamping these images in oat milk ink. So this is a really nice light gray. This is my preferred way of doing stamping and using coloring stencils. And then the key point is to leave your stamps in your Misty when you're done stamping. The coloring stencils, there are three of them, so one for each of the bears. And I will be focusing more on the one that I'll be using on my card project, but I do go over the other ones as well to show you my color combinations that I use. These coloring stencils make it really easy and super quick to color in your polar bears. So I'm placing the first layer of the stencil over the top of my bear, and I'm just going to hold everything down with Post-it tape. Now I'm bringing in a mini blending brush, and I'm going to blend just around the outer edges of the polar bear using that same oat milk ink. Then I'm going to come in with mushroom ink. So this is a little bit darker, and I'm going to use a smaller detail blending brush and just come in slightly around those same edges. This is going to add depth and dimension to our characters without a ton of work. Everything may look a little funny at first, but once we apply this to our project and start adding some color, it's going to all look amazing. Now, all I'm going to do is shift my stencil up and line up the scarf layer of the stencil over the top of my stamped image where the scarf is. Now, ink blending and adding dimension with my ink colors is one of my favorite things to do, and I am using three different shades to color in my scarf. You could absolutely just use one, but if you really want to add some dimension to this, this is how you would do it. I start off with pink champagne, just adding a light layer of color. Then I'm going to come in with cherry pop ink and a detail blending brush, and I'm going to go just around the outer edges of that scarf. I'm going to really try and make sure to leave that highlight pink right in the center of my scarf. Once I have a nice layer of color using the cherry pop, I'm going to bring in mulled wine, and this is really going to step up that dimension. Again, using one of these small blending brushes, and sometimes I'll even just use brush strokes, brushing that light or that dark color on instead of a swirling motion. Sometimes it's a little easier to control just by using brush strokes instead of the circular motion. And once I remove the stencil, we have this amazing dimensional scarf. I'm going to find the stencil that coordinates with this bear, and I'm going to repeat those same steps starting with the oatmeal ink. And if you want, you can add a little post-it tape or post-it note around it if you don't want to get any ink on the rest of your card project. But I planned on die cutting these out, so I'm not too concerned with that. Again, I'm coming around with the mushroom ink, making sure to get in towards the paws since the paws are in the center of the bear holding a heart. I shifted the stencil and lined up the muzzle and just used the leftover ink on my oat milk detail blending brush and just applied a little bit heavier of a hand to get that darker shade. I shifted the stencil once again and lined up the paws, and for this I am using the pink champagne for some cute little paw prints on the bottom, and now I'm coming into the scarf. I purposely left the scarf last because that is going to have the darkest colors on it. If you start with the scarf, you might want to clean your stencils in between so you don't risk transferring any of that color to the rest of your bears. Again, I started with that pink champagne, went around the edge with the cherry pop, and then adding that little extra step of dimension using the mulled wine. If you ever find that you added too much of the darker color, if you want to add your highlight back in, you can take a white colored pencil and just lightly go over the center of the scarf, and that'll bring your highlight areas back out. I found the coordinating stencil for my next set of bears, again, starting with that oat milk around the outer edge, went around with the mushroom, and now I'm going to come in and do pink champagne for one of the scarves on the bears, and then I'm going to use cilantro on the other side. And I'm actually going to have these colors kind of flip-flopped for the shirts, so I apply a little bit of a heavier hand on the outer edges of the scarf. I came in with cherry pop on the red just to step that up a little bit. And then I'm going to bring in jalapeno for the green. Now I'm going to give them opposite colors for the sweaters. Now I did clean my stencil in between because I don't want to transfer any of that dark color to the rest of my images. And I did add post-it tape on the edge because the edge of the stencil is pretty close to the edge of the bears. So here I'm adding those same colors, the cilantro and jalapeno, pink champagne, and cherry pop. Once I'm done adding all of my color, I'm going to remove all of my post-it tape and bring this back over to my Misty stamping tool. And I'm going to place that back in the exact spot. And I am going to stamp my images in VersaFine Clair black ink. This is really going to make all the details of the bears pop. And the reason I didn't start with black ink first is this just reduces the risk of me smearing any black ink. Since I have my Misty stamping tool out, I'm going to finish off the rest of my stamping, starting with the sentiment. So I have sugar cube cardstock in here. I put my foam insert back in my Misty since this is a clear stamp, stamping that in the VersaFine Clair ink. I removed the foam insert once again, and I'm going to stamp these trees from the Through the Woods stamp set, and I'm going to stamp 3 of them. I'm doing one in cilantro that I stamped twice. I'm going to do another one in cilantro just stamped once, so I'm getting just slight color variation. And then I will bring in another tree and stamp that in jalapeno. Once everything is stamped, I can take the coordinating dies, line them up over the images. I'm going to hold the dies in place with my Scotch removable tape, and I'm just going to get everything lined up at once to do all of my die cutting at once. So starting with the trees, then the sentiment, and then also the polar bears, which have their own coordinating die. I like being able to die cut any of my images and sentiments because that gives me an opportunity to pop everything up if I so choose. So now I have everything die cut out, and I'm going to bring out my mini mink machine to do some foiling. While my mini mink is warming up, I'm going to grab the silver fun foil and I'm going to roll out a strip and line up my panel over the top and trim out my foil. It's okay to have a little excess foil hanging off of the side. I'm going to dust the back of my foil and the front of my panel with a Swiffer cloth. I'm going to place my foil over my toner panel so it is pretty side up. And then I'm going to place this into my carrier sheet underneath that shim. Once that's secure in place, I can bring in my mini mink machine and I'm going to run this through, letting the rollers kind of catch the carrier sheet, always starting with the folded edge going in first. Once that comes through the back machine, I can remove everything and bring out my toner panel to do the peel and reveal. And now I have these perfectly foiled, beautiful silver snowflakes. I'm going to do some ink blending over the top to create a wintry night sky, and I'm going to start with Cookie Monster ink and a blending brush. So I'm going over this very light-handed, kind of saving that white space that's in the middle, which is going to be where my bear is peeking out. Then I'm going to come in with blueberry ink This one, I'm going to come in and not go as far as the Cookie Monster, so it's still leaving me this really nice light hue of blue towards the bottom. And then I will come in at the top with the Jelly Donut, adding that over the blueberry ink. Once again, just not coming in as far, and it's going to give me this beautiful wintry sky in the background. For the rest of my card project, I'm going to die cut the dried fit cardstock out of the A2 postage stacklets die using the largest one. I'm going to die cut my foiled panel using the A2 rectangle stacklets. I'm going to use that same size A2 layers stacklet die to die cut out another piece of white cardstock and die cut out a snowdrift for that. That is going to be a grounding place for my polar bear. I'm going to go around all the edges of my snowdrift and just using the leftover ink on my blending brushes, starting with that Cookie Monster and then jumping up to the Jelly Donut just to give it a little bit of dimension. And I'm going to add this to my foiled panel using a tape runner. Then I can start filling in my scene with my trees, and I'm adding tape runner behind those. I'm not going to push down on them just yet. This is going to give me a little bit of wiggle room to adjust them as needed. These two off on the side are going to overlap, and I'm purposely leaving them overhang so that I can trim off the excess and it just looks like a continuous scene. I'll then add some foam strips behind my foiled panel, remove the backing, and add this to my panel I created with the A2 postage stacklets die out of dried fig cardstock. I also added some of those foam strips to the back of my polar bear so I could pop that up as well. For the sentiment, I die cut out two more pieces out of plain white cardstock and I'm going to layer them together with my tape runner. Sometimes with the smaller sentiments, it's a lot easier to just layer cardstock versus my foam strips, and then added that towards the top. I have a side folding card base here that I'm going to hold closed with my teal tape, and that's going to keep it flat on my surface so I can add my panel to the front of my card base. That's going to finish off my card project where I have this beautiful wintry scene with my polar bear, lots of dimension on that scarf, and all of that beautiful shine. So this is a recreation of a card I created previously, and then I have some more inspiration to share with you. So this next card I created is very monochromatic. I again used that A2 postage die cut out of blueberry cardstock. I have a different foil panel in the background where I used blue stars and sparkle fun foil. And again, I filled in my scene with the Through the Woods stamp set, but this time I stamped it in blueberry ink. The next card I have is using the favorite sweater embossing folder. So I used that with a piece of sugar cube cardstock and then went over the background with rosewater ink and a blending brush. The colors I used for the sweater and the scarves is the rosewater ink and raspberry sorbet, and then sometimes I'll even bring in the mushroom ink just to add an extra bit of shadow to it. This kit also makes really great birthday cards. So my next card here is using the checking in background for my background piece. Then I have some balloons in the background that is using the balloon party stencil using rose water, raspberry sorbet, and mulled wine ink. And then I added some of the superstar stencil over the top using slippery when wet astro paste. Another card I created is using another one of those foil panels, this time using champagne foil, which just makes a really pretty shiny background. Again, Through the Woods stamp set for the trees and the checking in background. And this time I used some art stacklets. I have one background that I wanted to share with you, which I think would make a really great idea for your card project. I just didn't get a chance to finish it. And this is using the Sneak a Peek stencil. So I think these presents would make a really great birthday card with these adorable polar bears. And then the last project that I have to share with you is creating a tag. So these polar bears fit great on tags. I use that checking in background once again, and this time I have Tag Stacklets 5. As I was sharing these card projects, there was one more thing I wanted to do to the polar bears that I forgot to do, and that is giving them some rosy cheeks. So I brought in an Olo marker. This is R 0.2, and I'm going to come in and just add some little circles onto their cheeks, and it just gives them that nice wintry feel. So I just went through all of my completed cards and added all of those rosy cheeks to my polar bears. And there you have tons of inspiration using the Bear Hugs card making kit. I hope you enjoyed today's card projects. All of these will be available over at tailoredexpressions.com.